latest trade rumors for the Cubs, because a lot of people think, including Jim Bowden, that the Cubs will be the headliner when it's all said and done of teams involved in the trade deadline. We're into July, so that means less than a month till the trade deadline. And now one of the teams the Cubs are being connected to is actually in their own division, the Pirates. Whether it's Bednar or Keller or Ke'Bryan Hayes. Which of those three are you most interested in, and at what level do you go on each three?
I really like Mitch Keller because he's made 30 starts each of the last 3 seasons, pitched over 150 innings each of the last 3 seasons. I don't think he's number 1 starter, but I think he's top 3 starter. So I don't want to call him a depth piece, but I think that his contract is cheap. That would be beneficial for that type of arm. He's on a 5-year, $77 million deal. He's in year 2 of it right now. So, like, it's an affordable contract. He's 29. He's durable. He eats innings. And I do think that there's some form of, like, top 2 in the rotation type upside. Because a few years ago, this guy was, like, the best pitcher for the Pirates. Now, like, Paul Skeens takes all of that attention, but the last 2 years, his K rate's gone down, and that's probably my biggest concern about him. But just overall, like, that's a guy that I think would be a really good get for the Cubs, not just this year, but down the road too.
He sort of reminds me of early career Tyone, to be honest with you, a little bit. And I don't think that everybody that wants the ace for the Cubs then say we got to have a number 1. I don't think that's happening. I don't think that guy's out there, especially with the Sale injury, and I don't think a number 1 is happening. He would be a nice fit. Now, Ke'Bryan Hayes at third base is interesting because the Cubs have once, we all know, fleeced the Pirates on a young third baseman that had potential when they got Kenny Lofton and Aramis Ramirez and almost made it to the World Series. Would you take Ke'Bryan Hayes at third base for a while?
It just doesn't make sense because he hasn't hit.
Well,
like,
that's...
You want me to read his offensive numbers?
No, I know. I think McMahon in Colorado makes more sense, to be honest with you.
Now, Hayes is elite defensively. He's elite defensively, leads all third basemen in most defensive metrics.
But you're not getting bad defense out of Matt Shaw.
No.
You're just getting no offense out of Matt
You're
Shaw.
Getting great defense out of Matt Shaw. You're just not getting enough offense. The thing, too, that to me that doesn't make sense with Hayes is that he's under contract through 2031. He's on a 8-year, $70 million extension. And at the time when the Pirates gave it to him, they were hopeful that the offense was going to break out. 2 years ago, he was a league average hitter. But the last 2 years, or I guess you can call it last year and a half, that offense hasn't been there. This guy right now is going into, as of this recording, a 68 WRC plus. That's worse than Matt Shaw. So, you know.
And if you do it, what does it mean for Matt Shaw? I don't know.
Yeah. Like, the only way that I could see it making sense is if you're sending Matt Shaw to the Pirates. And I love Mitch Keller, like I said, but I'm not sending Matt Shaw to the Pirates for Mitch Keller. I'm sending Matt Shaw to the Pirates for Paul Skeens, and that's really about it. And the Pirates aren't going to trade Paul Skeens, man.
No, but I would do that deal.
Well, yeah, that's what listen.
So would everybody else in the world except for the Pirates.
Yeah. I just I don't get the Ke'Bryan Hayes rumor that came out over the weekend. It's interesting, and I know how the Cubs think. Like, you know, does Dustin Kelly think that there's some form of thing that he can help unlock Ke'Bryan Hayes and get that talent to show finally, because he was a highly touted prospect.
Sure.
The offense has just never really showed up for him. When you're in a win now type situation here at the deadline, I think that this move for Hayes would have made sense like a year or 2 ago. And now it doesn't necessarily make sense right now.
And the last piece is David Bednar, who, longtime closer. We talked about him a couple years ago, saying, man, I wish they could get a hold of Bednar. And then he had a stretch where he was not very good. He was actually removed from his role as closer of the Pirates. Now he's back in it, had a little resurgence. I don't know that I need Bednar as my closer because I still like Palencia and I like Hodge, but I love the idea of adding that arm to the mix for bullpen guys the rest of the season. That part of it I do like. And I will say this. I heard somebody the other day talking about, well, you got to have a veteran with lots of experience. Well, there's no, like, he's on the Pirates. There's no big, like, pressure moments you're talking about here. But he has been a very successful closer in the National League.
The good news is that he's back to form 2 years ago. We had almost 40 saves 2 years ago. The bad news, or I guess the risk, is that we know bullpens are volatile, and like this guy could revert to the old Bednar of last season. And I feel like at any moment, and maybe this is a bad way to look at it, but how would this guy perform in Chicago with 40,000 people at the ballpark compared to PNC Park, where the only time people really show up is when Paul Skeens pitches?
I don't know.
That's my only true concern, and maybe that's a meatballish of me to say, but to me, if you're getting him, you're probably going to have to send a decent haul, considering under control for a while, I think. And
closers usually get a pretty good return at the trade deadline. That much is true. And it depends on who you're competing with.
I think the Cubs need a high leverage arm, but I don't think they quote unquote need a closer.
I don't either.
I think Palencia has really established himself. But I just think they need one more veteran arm in there with some pedigree.
He'd be that.
And he would be that. And he seems like he is back. And of the three, I probably rank Mitch Keller number 1, then Bednar number 2, and then Hayes number 3 in terms of like what I would like. Because I feel like there's more certainty with Keller than there is with Bednar long term.
Well, not too often do you see teams trading with other teams in their division. But the Cubs and Pirates have a history.
Yeah.
A long history, and I like that one. So,
what's funny is I believe it was Aramis Ramirez's birthday just a few days ago.
Yeah.
So all these rumors coming out.
Cubs Hall of Famer.
Around the same time. Cubs Hall of Famer, yeah. Coming out around the same time as the irony there is fun. But, yeah, that's kind of where I sit on these dudes. I do think that Keller is a type of pitcher that would be great to add to this rotation, but he can't be your quote-unquote front line. You add him, I still think you need another arm too, but because of the contract, he's probably going to cost you a lot. So it's hard to tell how serious it is right now.
Cubs are going to be the team to watch, and, of course, we are watching them. That's all we're going to be doing for a couple weeks.
Yep. It's nice to talk about adding instead of selling.
It is.